I'm most proud of this." With these words, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance commented on the complete halt of U.S. military aid to Ukraine. J.D. Vance also stated that he is very proud that the United States has also stopped any funding for Ukraine in general, and that's really the case. The U.S. has exhausted all remaining commitments made back when Joe Biden was in office. And paradoxically, this news did not make Russia happy, but suddenly alarmed it. The head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, declared in a panic today that this is a cunning move. After all, Donald Trump simply redirected the aid, but is secretly preparing a new military alliance with Ukraine instead of NATO. At the same time, more and more information is appearing that a new military alliance with Ukraine is actually being discussed in Europe. Ukraine, if Trump leaves NATO, and there is something to discuss here. My name is Alexei Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the episode, and write any comment you want. This is very important for promoting this episode on YouTube. And subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, let's start with J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States. He stated that he is very proud that the United States has stopped funding Ukraine. He claims that one of the main achievements of the White House is precisely the decision to stop, as he put it, funding the war in Ukraine. Quote, "One of the things I am most proud of as a representative of the administration is that we told Europe, if you want to buy weapons, buy them. But the United States no longer buys and does not process. They send weapons to Ukraine. We have completely withdrawn from this process, and I am proud of that." I would like to note that after Donald Trump became president of the United States for the second time, the Americans really gradually stopped directly providing military aid to Ukraine. Instead, together with NATO, the Purell program was created, the goal of which is to quickly supply Ukraine with critically important American weapons that have no European equivalents. The mechanism provides for the formation of a priority list of needs coordinated with Ukraine's partners. The funding for purchases is provided by the countries of the North Atlantic Alliance through contributions to a single common fund, after which the US ensures direct deliveries of equipment and ammunition to the front. But J.D. Vance's statement unexpectedly did not please the Kremlin, but instead made them tense and alarmed. The head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, unexpectedly stated that the US simply wants to shift the containment of Russia onto Europe in order to free up its hands for China. He said that this is all a cunning plan. The US withdrew its support for Ukraine, and Europe has already managed to make up for all the aid that used to come from Washington. Moreover, Sergei Lavrov suddenly stated that all this talk about the US leaving NATO and stopping aid to Ukraine is also a cunning game by Donald Trump and Americans in general. Here is a quote from Lavrov. "It is in these interests that they are trying to stimulate not only discussions, but also practical actions towards creating a previously announced anti-Russian military bloc with the participation of Ukraine. Zelensky has already supported this idea. Well, you see, before, Russians were supposedly fighting against NATO, but now it turns out it's not against NATO, but a new kind of military alliance is being created." Lavrov added that former US presidential special envoy Keith Kellogg, together with what he called European grandees, is promoting the idea of creating a new military bloc in which Ukraine will be a leading participant. In his opinion, these discussions are being pushed specifically by the White House. He says that this initiative definitely comes from Donald Trump's administration, not from the Europeans. The US authorities, with the help of the new bloc, want to shift the main responsibility for containing Russia from themselves to Europe. Here, excuse me, I'll digress a little. I was amused by the statement of another, clown from Russia. That's Dmitry Peskov, the press secretary of the Russian balding dictator. So Peskov recently stated, he says, listen, the Americans are linking the development of economic relations with Russia to the issue of ending Russia's war against Ukraine. He says we're actually against this. He says we believe it's not necessary to end the war in order to do business with the Americans. And I found it amusing because it's such a ridiculous statement, but apparently Russians perceive it differently. But I laughed because the Americans are telling the Russians that the conditions for ending the war in Ukraine are mandatory conditions for entering into any kind of economic relations. Mandatory. Peskov comes out and says, well, we think it's not mandatory. Nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares at all. I didn't get the point of that statement. The Russians think that's how we put Americans in their place, but Americans don't care. They just say, fine, don't end it, go away, there won't be any relations. There you go. But let's get back to Lavrov's statements. I should note here that Keith Kellogg really did previously propose creating a military alliance involving Ukraine. He called Ukraine a good ally. Along with Ukraine, he singled out Germany and Poland, which have increased their military activity. He also suggested including them in a not yet existing bloc, kind of like an alternative to NATO. But then more interesting news appeared. The Wall Street Journal writes that due to the threat of the US leaving NATO, Europe has actually started secretly preparing a plan that would allow it to defend itself alone against aggressive Russia without American troops and guarantees. Officials involved in preparing such plans are trying to get more Europeans into command and management roles in NATO, while at the same time compensating with their own resources for those provided by the US. The goal is to preserve three things, even in the event of the withdrawal of American troops. The first is deterring Russia. The second is continuity of military operations and nuclear guarantees. As you can imagine, these plans do not yet have official status and are not intended to replace the current alliance, but they are definitely aimed at having a workable plan B. If you didn't get it, let me rephrase. Right now, the Europeans are saying, okay, the most active Americans have always participated in NATO leadership, so we will have fewer Americans and more Europeans. European countries now initiate military exercises more frequently themselves. Then there are the resources that America supplies, which urgently need to be compensated for, specifically by Europeans. So, okay, let America stay in NATO, but its role should be minimized. On the other hand, the role of Europeans should be maximized. But for now, these are just plans for creating a new military alliance with Ukraine. Today, another summit was held in the Ramstein format, and notably, it took place without the participation of the Americans. Nevertheless, today, the American defense company Raytheon officially signed a contract to supply upgraded PAC-2 missiles for the Patriot system for Ukraine. The total value of the contract is almost $4 billion, and Ukraine will receive the missiles from a new factory producing these missiles, because the company is expanding. In addition, today the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius intrigued everyone. He stated that Germany is strengthening Ukraine's ability to strike at long distances. But how exactly? That's even more interesting. We are strengthening Ukraine's ability to carry out strategic strikes at long distances. We will achieve this through German-Ukrainian cooperation in the field of armaments and by creating another joint venture for the development and production of various types, medium and long-range drones. These measures are aimed at supporting Ukraine's new defense concept. They will help maintain and strengthen Ukraine's momentum. Ukraine will only be able to continue its defensive struggle with our joint support. Their success depends on all of us. At the same time, the United Kingdom is providing Ukraine with at least 120,000 drones this year. By the way, this is the largest drone package that Ukraine has received from the United Kingdom during the full-scale war. The package includes long-range strike drones, reconnaissance drones, logistics drones, and maritime systems. In general, Europe has completely taken on the role of Ukraine's main security donor, so, as they say, we'll be okay. Well, as for J.D. Vance, if abandoning an ally in trouble is his main pride, then so be it. We just hope that the American voter will draw certain conclusions from these statements. I'll leave it at that for now, but friends, I want to recommend a YouTube episode that I would suggest even Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, should watch. It's called He Should Stop Pretending to Be Normal. This episode is by my favorite psychologist. I've been recommending this YouTube channel to you for a long time. The link will be in the description, go check it out. It's a wonderful collection about how all of us are. We're always trying to fit in with those around us, trying to suppress some of our character traits and more, And in doing so, we end up suffocating ourselves a little bit. That's why I recommend watching this episode. I'll leave the link in the description and in the pinned comment under this episode. And friends, be sure to check it out, watch, and subscribe. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.